We haven't received any apologies.
Chair, I've got an apology from Councillor Abdul. He said he'll be joining virtually, but he can't be here in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting on pages 5 to 8. Can I ask if there are any queries with regarding to that? No, in that case, can I find those as a true record then, please? Yeah. Right, any public questions
No, we haven't received any public questions.
or member questions?
We haven't received any member questions.
Right, hear that. Right, so can we move then to item 6?
Mr. Chairman, did we do declarations of interest?
Oh, we didn't do that. No, sorry. Yeah. No. Any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Right. Who's going to be talking on the gambling principle?
Julia, are you presenting that item?
Luciani, we have David Lucas with us this evening, who is the consultant who has done redrafted the Wokingham Statement of Gambling Principles. So if I can hand over to David and ask him to present the report, please.
Yes, thanks, Julia. Can everybody hear me okay? Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to present the draft that we prepared, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to work with you on this. I know some of you I have met already on previous meetings, but I'll try and be brief this evening. And first of all, I've got to apologise because anybody that's eagle-eyed will have seen that I've missed Appendix A off the draft. Appendix A is the list of consultees, Chair, so apologies for that, but it will be rectified, I can assure you. So Appendix A will need to be inserted, but it's a list of consultees. As far as the actual process is concerned, the Gambling Commission issued a very timely reminder to all authorities as part of their advice that it's necessary to bring the policies up to date, to tidy them up, and so that's what we've done largely. This exercise has been tidying up and just bringing certain aspects of your policy, your gambling policy, up to date. I won't go through each section, save to say that most of them have had some attention as part of this exercise. In some of the areas, and I'll just highlight them if I may, Chair, just to say that we have paid a bit more attention to the information. So, for example, there's a definition of at 1.6, section 1.6 of interested parties. That's people with business interests and people who live nearby. That definition we've updated, and in particular in relation to business interests. So that section, as I say, has had some more information inserted. Can I just say that the idea, that the way we've approached this is to make this document hopefully a document that is helpful to not just yourselves, but also to the officers and anybody, a member of the public, a business, a potential applicant who wants some assistance as to your local approach to gambling applications, gambling facilities. So that's the approach we've adopted. Moving on, section 1.9, local risk assessments. As I say, I've brought that up to date, in particular the reference to something called a local area profile. The Gambling Commission would like authorities to consider these profiles. They are not a statutory requirement. They are an expensive exercise, and I have to say I'm not sure how helpful they are. And if you include them within your policy, then you're creating a great deal of extra work, because every time you change your local area profile, you'd have to change the policy. So it's, if you have a local area profile, and I'm not saying that you need one, then the reference in the policy is to a separate document that can be obtained by contacting the licensing department if there is one. And I stress and say it probably for the third time, you don't have to have one. It's not a statutory requirement. And then moving through, as I say, I'm not going to mention every section. I've added some additional information at 2.5 on licence conditions, in particular in relation to door supervisors at gambling premises. In each of the following sections, then, members, you've got reference to specific types of premises. So you've got adult gaming centres, you've got bingo premises, casinos, etc. What I've included at the beginning of each section is a description of the facilities that are available at each of those premises, because anybody who isn't familiar with the Gambling Act could look at a section, for example, on adult gaming centres and not know precisely what facilities are being provided. I've put that description in at the beginning, so everybody, yourselves, officers, etc., will know exactly what we're talking about for each type of gambling premises, gambling venue. In relation to casinos, your policy currently refers to a no casino resolution. I've actually taken that out, or I've suggested in the draft that it's removed. A no casino resolution has to be renewed every 3 years. There's no possibility that you could have a casino in your area for the simple reason that the Act doesn't allow it. There are only 16 in total casinos allowed throughout the whole of Great Britain under this new Act. The areas in which each of those 16 casinos can be provided has already been determined, and it doesn't include your area. So what I've done is just actually state the position as it exists, both in law and fact, just to make it far more clearer and to save you the trouble of having to produce a no casino resolution when there's no particular need to at all. And then moving on, again, as I say, I've updated and really, members, apart from adding a section on small society lotteries, which wasn't included, and the Gambling Commission recommend it's included, and I agree with them. I've added that section. It's a new one. The only other thing is the scheme of delegation is more detailed. It's not exactly the same as the existing scheme. It just provides more information on each of the specific different types of situations in which there can be delegation. So we've just extended it, members. So that, in a nutshell, is an overview of what we've done as part of this review and redrafting of the policy, the gambling policy. At that point, Chair, can I ask if you've got any comments or questions, you or the members? I can see hands going up.
Thank you very much. I've got some comments and questions around two different aspects. Firstly, about this is obviously going out to consultation, so I've got some queries about that, and then obviously about some of the detail in there. Firstly, with regards to the consultation, I'd be quite interested to know how this is going to be promoted. And you have actually included Appendix A in this draft. It is in there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it is in there. There is a discrepancy, though, because on page 11 of our agenda under point 9, there's a list of stakeholders who will be consulted, and they are not the same as what's in Appendix A. Appendix A seems a little bit more thorough, and I just want to check that it is the ones in Appendix A that are going to be consulted. And it doesn't mention anywhere about elected members and the public on there. So I want to ensure that that is going to be coming out to us in the public. I also want to check that this is actually going to be easily available for the public. So when I went online to the council website to actually look at our existing policy, when you go to the policies, plans and strategies page of the website, there is the Gambling Act statement there. It actually takes you back to a 2012 version, so it's not up to date. I have since been able to find the current version, but in such a convoluted way, it's not easily accessible. So it needs to be in a much more visible place so that people can actually read this. I also want to pick up on Appendix C in there, the delegation. It's not laid out in a very user-friendly way, and if this is going to be for people to be able to look at this and understand this, I think the way it was presented in the previous format was much clearer. Actually, I appreciate it's more detailed now, but it isn't user-friendly at the moment in that sense. Just a couple of points on page. I'm going to use page numbers of our agenda. Is that helpful, or would you rather have page numbers of the document?
If you refer to the page number that's convenient to you, but if there's a section number in the document, but I'll be able to find it.
Okay, it's under section 1.6, which is interested parties. For our agenda here, it's on page 20. And this is talking about people that are representing interested parties.
Yeah.
And what was in the old policy was that democratically elected persons who represented interested parties did not need to provide specific evidence of this. We were able to speak on behalf of our residents without needing to provide evidence that we've been explicitly asked. That's actually not in there anymore, and it's not clear cut. And I would like to know why, because we are members of the public, we are representing our communities, and if every time, I don't know how often this is going to come up, but if there is a situation where we do want to speak on behalf of our public, to have proof that we've been asked by a member of the public does not make sense to me at all. And I don't understand why that's been changed. Also, under 1.7, information exchange, so I'm trying to, mod.gov has messed up now, but I haven't got my exact notes on there, but this was something to do with, on the previous version, it actually said in there that people's personal details would be available in the public on this, and it doesn't say this in here anymore. Has something changed? Because if people who are applying are going to have their details displayed publicly, I think they should be told, and it should really be in this statement. So I'm not sure why that's been removed. Those were the main points. So I'd like to know more about the consultation and the stakeholders, and then some specific and how this is presented on the council website, and then some specific points on there. I appreciate there's a few things there.
Okay, shall I go first? Because I think part of this will be for the officers to deal with. But as far as the consultation process is concerned, there's a basic list of consultees in the Act, and they are the police, people who represent the interests of persons carrying on gambling businesses or operators of gambling businesses, and those likely to be affected by the authority's functions. That's all the Act says. Now, it's then open to individual authorities to interpret how they apply those provisions, and as long as the minimum, if you like, consultees are involved in the process, fine, but a lot of authorities extend the range of people. So it's a case if you're given a minimum list in the Act, and then it's down to each authority as to whether they want to stick to that minimum or extend it and include a wider range. That's the reason for the difference. So as long as as I say, the statutory consultees are involved in the process, that's fine. But as I say, very often it's extended. Now, how it's actually dealt with, the mechanics within your particular council, as I say, that will be down to the officers as to how they publicise it and everything else. So I hope that's helpful.
Is there someone on the call that can explain how it's going to happen then, please, from our council?
Chairman, I'm happy to answer. It's Maria Fraser here from the work in the policy and governance team. In terms of where things are displayed on the website, we can work with the DEM services within Wokingham to make sure that the policy is put in somewhere where it is easier to find. we will be putting an advert into the newspaper, writing to the people that have been listed, and we'd be happy to extend that instead of the paragraph listed in the recommendations, to extend that to all the people listed in Appendix A if members are so minded to do that. And then we will obviously also ensure that there is a reference to the portal on the public protection website to make sure that we can take people to there if they're members of the public that wish to comment on it as well.
Thank you. Could I just check that? Oh, gosh, sorry. That was a bit weird. Can I just check that that link will be on the Wokingham Borough Council website, please?
We will make sure that we need to make sure that it's linked through to both.
Thank you.
And just Moira, just for the sake of clarity, the list that's in the draft document is it replicates the list that's in the existing one. So it's open to you to amend that list as long as you include, as I say, the statutory consultees. So I can leave that to you to decide yourselves within the council, if that's okay. If I can move on, Appendix B, Councillor, that can be put in a user-friendly format. I don't see any problem with that.
That was just Appendix C, just to clarify. The
Sorry, C.
Scheme of delegations.
Oh yes, B's the map, isn't it? Sorry, C, the scheme of delegation. Yes, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yes, Appendix C. That's not a problem. That could be reformatted. Then, if that's okay, can I go to 1.6? Your query about whether or not interested parties can be personal. Right, you asked about whether written confirmation is required. Basically, the way I've suggested it, and again, it quite happy to amend this if required, but the final paragraph that begins, it is for the licensing authority to determine on a case-by-case basis whether or not a person making a representation is in an interested party, and then it says the authority may ask for evidence. So it just leaves it open to the authority, and it doesn't specify whether in any particular case written evidence will be required or won't be. It just leaves it open to the authority if they're concerned to ensure that somebody is actually authorised to represent an interested party. They can ask for that confirmation. That's all.
Now, I was going to say, I fully appreciate that. I just think that anyone who is an elected member and parish and town councils are automatically authorised to do that, and a case of may or may not shouldn't come into it. And I think that should be explicitly stated in here. By the fact we've been elected to these positions, it's our duty to do that. And the fact that it's not definite, that should be included.
I've got no problem with that. If that's what members would like to go in, I certainly wouldn't oppose that. And the other question was in relation to information exchange. Again, I just put a simple paragraph in to keep it very very concise, but I'd have no objections to that paragraph about, well, just making it abundantly clear about representations that they'll be made available, because that's the law. I've got no problem with that going in, Councillor. I say it's the law, so we can put it back in.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, they can, look up the data protection and freedom of information law and all of that. It's people don't know these things inside out, and it's better just to explicitly say your personal details will be made publicly available. Yeah,
and just to clarify, sorry to interrupt. Was there something else? Sorry.
I think that was it. I'm trying to remember. I did ask a lot of things. If there's anything else, I'll come back at the end because I'm sure other people want to ask questions. Thank you.
Sorry, it was my mistake when I said it's a question of law. It's not just DDPA. It's in the Act, the Gambling Act. If somebody makes a representation, then the Act says that if there's a hearing, the authority has to make copies of the representations available to the other parties. So that's what I mean. It's the law. It's the gambling law. Yeah. But
you're going to have people reading this that won't know the law in the.
No, that's fine.
That say you do. So thanks.
Yeah. No, that's why I'm absolutely fine with that.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to focus on the 3 core aims. So this is on page 10 that the statement must relate to. So, what would you say has changed in the last 3 years in relation to our local assessment of gambling? Are there sort of new or emerging risks that we need to reflect or indeed have reflected here? So I imagine it would be very easy to just roll forward a document like this every 3 years without actually going back, and tweak it where we need to, without sort of going back to the basics of what actually are we trying to achieve with this statement. So are there sort of new risks that we've updated this document to reflect?
Can you just tell me, when you say 3 core aims, which section number are you looking at? Is that?
So section 6 on page 10 of our pack. So preventing gambling from being a source of crime, ensuring gambling.
Right. Thank you.
Protecting children.
I mean, basically, the licensing objectives are they've not changed at all, and they remain the basis for or the foundation for this legislation. So any decisions made are made with a view to promoting those objectives. They haven't changed at all. So really, any decisions that you make in relation to any aspect of this policy or any application, they are the 3 objectives that you're looking at, and they haven't changed at all. That would need a change to the Act itself, and that hasn't happened. I can assure you of that. So they remain consistent.
So that I understand that. My question was about how have we sort of reassessed that rather than just taking a document from 3 years ago and making some tweaks to update it. Are we actually confident that we are meeting those 3 core aims in this document, having, from what we know on the ground, as it were, in our local assessment of gambling in the borough?
Well, the difficulty that you've got is that you're constrained by the Act as to what you can actually achieve through this legislation. I appreciate that gambling, it can, for example, lead to issues around that affect people's health, but health isn't one of the objectives in the Act. So sometimes we have to accept that we can't use the Gambling Act to address some of these issues. But having gone through the policy on this occasion, I can assure you that this is not just rolling it over. What we've done is made sure that you've got the ability within all of these different parts of the policy to make decisions to promote those objectives within the confines of the legislation. I know it's difficult to be specific, but I think that's the best way I can explain it. That this document puts you in, I would say, it wouldn't I? I think the best position that we can, given that you're constrained by the Act and in particular those objectives, to deal with any issues that arise within your particular locality related to gambling premises and gambling activities.
Okay,
as I say,
thank you. Fine, thank you.
We just, in essence, we just got to work within the constraints of the Act. Thank you.
Paul. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, David, for your presentation. Casinos. What happens if one or more of the 16 designated casinos closes? How does that impact on local authorities that do not have a casino rule, especially if the casino companies don't want to go back to any of those designated areas?
I mean, basically, the designated areas all went through a bidding process under the Act. So it's not a case of, well, the 16 areas, if one drops out, somebody else can come along. It's quite a complex, convoluted bidding process, and the areas have to be approved. Well, they have to bid. There might be a competition between the authorities. So I think if it ever came to a situation where there was a competition, a bidding process, I don't think you'd have any problems if you felt that you wanted to make a no casino resolution at that stage. But I certainly don't see the need for it at the moment because of the way the Act works and you can't just have one drop out and another one take its place. As I say, it's quite a long drawn out process.
So just on that, just to clarify, if one or more of these casinos closed in these designated areas, does the government then open it up for bidding from local authorities to become one of those?
So there are 16 areas that were identified. Not all of them have got casinos at the moment. It's a case of, first of all, the areas had to bid to be one of the 16. They've been chosen, the areas this is, and then they have to run a competition or basically say that within our area, we're now inviting casino operators, licensed casino operators, to apply to us for this casino license. And then they have to run a competition within their area, if there's more than one casino operator interested, to see which they consider is going to be the best operator for their area. So as I say, it's not a straightforward process, but initially it's the areas, the council areas that have been identified. And as I say, not all of them have had casinos in their areas. Only some of them have got operational casinos.
So if one of these areas, the casino closed, okay, and nobody else wanted to go back there, and the government opened it up for somewhere else, okay, there's one, effectively like a franchise, it would be for Wokingham Borough to decide to throw its hat in the ring to become one of those designated areas. So we would need to make that decision go forward or not as a council.
As the council, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, in the past, there's never been any attempt to have a casino in this area. And I think it would be very unlikely to happen anyway because of the proximity of Reading being so close. Not many places would want to be competing with the issues that are going on there. So it's a very unlikely situation we'll ever see that happening.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My thought was that the Reading one actually closed and nobody wanted to go back into Reading, and Wokingham looked like a better alternative. That was my thinking. But,
is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this item? Michael?
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Apologies for my lateness. I was called in a previous meeting. Just really going on with what Councillor Kerr said earlier on about the law. Actually, under the law, everyone is deemed to know the law. Might seem unfair, but that is the law. Just thought I'd remind people of that one. I mean, I think this is a good document, but I just really want to clarify some clarification on the point where it says that the statement lasts for a maximum of 3 years and can be reviewed and revised by the authority at any time. So if there's anything that's wrong in there, it can be altered. And that might alleviate some of the earlier questions I would have thought. But I'm just really asking what the mechanism might be for doing that. How would that happen? Would it come to this committee, or would it go to the executive member or whatever, or would it be consulted on? That would be good to know. Thank you.
Basically, Councillor, you'd have to go through the same process as we're doing now, and you'd have to go out to consultation. So it would begin with you and end with you, if you know what I mean. That's how it would work. So you'd be fully aware of what's happening and in control of the situation. So you would instigate it, basically.
Okay, that's good to know. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Now the question is, oh, yes. Sorry, I've got.
Just thinking of the hypothetical situation that where we've got we've got the bookmaker shops and everything else that's covered here. What's the situation if a number of residents said that they're not happy about the number of bookmakers in a particular area? What sort of weight would be put to that sort of situation?
So it's a good question, Councillor, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier to your colleague about we have to work within the constraints of the Act, and your fellow councillors in Newham, the Newham area, were concerned about the number of bookmakers a few years ago, and basically they endeavoured to use the Gambling Act to try and stem the flow of new betting shops that were appearing on the high street, and it was very difficult. And basically, although the authority refused the applications, they were granted on appeal on a strict application of the Act, and so it just goes back to what I was saying earlier. Any objection to new premises or variations of existing have to be based on those 3 licensing objectives. So it's quite difficult. The only alternative really was identified at the time, and that was the planning regime, which, as you know, is completely separate and from the Gambling Act and the licensing regime. But planning was seen as the way forward. Incidentally, just on that point, the number of betting shops has actually started to decline, because the reason for their popularity on the high street were the high stakes and prize gaming machines. They were called FOBTs, FOBTs, something like that. They're a category B gaming machine. It was a maximum stake of £100, maximum payout 500. They were very popular. They were known in the press as the crack cocaine of gaming machines. Bookmakers can only provide a maximum of 4 machines in their premises, gaming machines. So the idea that bookmakers had was we'd put more bookmakers on the high street, so you could have one company with several shops very close to each other. And the idea behind that was to increase the number of these high stakes and prize machines in their premises. Now, you probably recall about 2 years ago, Tracy Crouch led I think quite a campaign in Westminster to try and get the stakes reduced. Eventually, they did come down. I think it was the year before last, from £100 to £1. Sorry, £100 to £2. Their popularity has waned considerably, and as a result, quite a lot of bookmakers have closed their premises. So that issue around the growth or the increase in the number of bookmakers shops and the proliferation on the high street is now, I don't know if it's putting it too strong to say it's consigned to history, but it's certainly not the issue it was. So I hope that helps. Sorry to go on, but hopefully you found that helpful.
Okay, thank you. Shahid.
Oh, thank you, Chair. My actually question is regarding the consultation and the communication of that consultation. Hearing from some of the other consultation we do, I think there's a room for improvement here. We want to make sure that those, first of all, the right people are consulted, which includes some of the list which is not here as well, but also how we communicate that message, that's consultation, to the public as well. Because a lot of the time this happens in planning and other issues as well. People, the complaint I hear from the resident is, oh, we didn't know anything about this until it's actually too late to do anything. So I know from the officers here, can you please give us the assurance that you'll use all the different mediums we have in place to make sure that this message is widely circulated and people have the opportunity to give their views? Thank you.
Chairman, just to say the consultation will be running for 12 weeks, and we will make sure that we work with the relevant people in the public relations teams within Workingham, as well as the Public Protection Partnership, to make sure that the message is clearly communicated.
Sarah?
Thank you. I wanted to change one of the recommendations ever so slightly and tweak it in light of what Shahid has just said and what I raised earlier. And that's recommendation 3 of the report. It currently says that the parties are set out in paragraph 9 of the report and any identified at the meeting be consulted. So I'm suggesting that we, hang on a minute, say that the parties are set out in both paragraph 9 and Appendix A of the report are consulted, as well as elected members and the wider public.
Any comments with regards to that from other members? Are you happy to support that?
I would support that. I'd second it. Okay.
Right. Can I just see then those in favour of supporting that amendment, please? Any against? One. That amendment is carried then. Right. So if we can take let's look at the 4 recommendations which we've discussed with the appropriate amendments as put forward by the various members. Can I ask for your approval to move ahead on that recommendation, please? Those in favour? Thank you very much. Who's going to be talking about that? Right, okay, yeah. The Hackney Carriage and private hire licence fees. Which officer is going to be dealing with that one, please?
Chairman, I'm happy to deal with it. This was a matter that arose at the last meeting and is reflected in the minutes of the meeting from the March meeting, where members were discussing whether or not they wish to continue to apply a subsidy to the fees. Members asked officers to go away and look and see what other support had been offered to the taxi trade. And it's been confirmed that to date 98 ARG grants have been handed out to the trade. So really it will be a matter for members then to determine whether or not they wish to apply a subsidy or not.
Thank you. I think we've got Rachel as the first one.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, as we were saying, we now know that 98 taxi businesses have received some sort of COVID grant. I've checked the numbers. We've got 325 drivers on our books at the moment. So that means less than a third have received some kind of support and over 2/3 haven't. We know, as it says in the report, that the effect of COVID on the taxi trade can't be underestimated. So I continue to support the view that we should not be expecting taxi drivers to accept a rise in fees of 17% this year when they haven't been able to do their jobs effectively for so long over the last year. Don't forget that 3 years ago, this fee for Hackney carriages was £157. It's now £290. So it's almost doubled in that time. It's just not realistic or fair to expect them to be able to pay those kind of fees when essentially for much of the time they haven't been able to work. I'd also reiterate a point that I made at the last committee that to commit to this effectively a subsidy wouldn't be material in terms of the council's budget, but it would certainly be material to many of the individual drivers. So I want to propose that the Hackney and private hire vehicle licence fees this year are held at the 2021 level. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. I just wanted to clarify as well. It says here in the minutes of the previous meeting that we were going to get a report with details of the help that was given. We haven't had any details at all, actually. We do have some numbers, but there's nothing, there's no context. And these are payments that are finished. There's still issues, you know, they're still not getting their business. So yeah, we've not had the details of the report as requested, and I would second Rachel's proposal.
Yes. Paris.
Thank you. I've been talking to my local taxi drivers at Twyford, and I echo the comment made about their complete lack of business. they estimate that their income is around about 15 to 20% of what they had before the pandemic. And that 15 to 20% is of the taxi drivers who are remaining, because quite a number of them have actually handed their licence in. And I think at the last meeting we had, there was an indication of the numbers that had dropped. And not all of the taxi drivers have received any form of grant. One I spoke to this morning had received a discretionary grant, and he had recently an additional income element arrive with the latest tranche of money that came in from the government. But it doesn't even cover the equivalent of a pension, there alone somebody who's trying to run some form of business. So I absolutely agree that the position is that we've got in the agenda, we've got the current position and we've got the proposed, and I would fully support and the situation that we continue with the existing licence fees as shown in Appendix A, the first part of Appendix A on page 63. We would be asking taxi drivers who have had virtually no income or only the grants for some of them and not all. Quite a few of them have moved on to other things. They're working on Deliveroo and all sorts. The taxi business has just dropped at the moment. Some slight increase at the moment, but it's going to take a long time for that to come back. So I think it would be inappropriate for the council to increase its licence fees at this time.
Thank you. I think Sarah wanted to come back in.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted a point of clarity, because this report was brought to us before we moved into the new financial year. So I'm assuming that those increases have already happened. So can I also ask if we are minded to accept Rachel's proposal, that there will be refunds in place for those that have already paid their licences at the increased fee that we will in effect be rejecting? Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, interesting. My question will be on the same point, actually. When are the fees going to be effective from? So that's quite crucial as to if we support this or not, I think. If they're already effective now, then I think Councillor Kerr makes a good point.
It's difficult to see through all these screens. I've set up there, and I appreciate the problem, Mr. Chairman. What's the approximate cost of this proposal, please?
Have any folks from the officers with regards to that?
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Julia here. I have numbers of the vehicles that we have in the fleet. If you bear with me just a second. So we have 66 Hackney carriages, 80 private hire vehicles, and 54 school vehicles. So my maths here. 8, 14, 19. So it is, in round figures, nearly 200 vehicles. So whatever 200 times 40 would be.
We'd estimated at about £9,000.
Yeah, I think that's right, Councillor. Thank you very much.
Any further comments from any members, please? Oh, Sarah, again.
Yeah, just to say that amount is, it makes a huge amount to these taxi drivers, but very little impact on the council. So I'm hoping that we can unanimously approve the proposal.
I'm not so sure that it's a huge amount from the money that we're talking about. It's only around about 40, 50 pounds, isn't it, we're talking about? That doesn't sound like a huge amount to me, but it's nevertheless, considering the circumstances they're in, I understand that. can I see those in favour of the proposal that was put forward by Rachel?
I confirm it has the additional wording in there about refunding the difference if we approve this to those that have already paid, please. Thank you.
Is there anyone against? I don't think there is. No. We've now approved that that's the case, so I think we can move on to the next item then, please. So it's a forward plan.
Chairman, just if members would like to make any additions or changes to the forward plan, if they could let us know, please.
Sarah?
I'm just wondering if we need something in here at some point to reflect the fact that we will be moving away from the public protection partnership that this falls under, and we may need to be looking at that in this committee at some point before it happens.
Yes, I understand that that's moving forward, and I think that I don't think that this committee would have the authority to actually change that, but
Just we need to be able to look and understand and feed into the process to make it work. I appreciate we can't change the decision, but we can help shape it.
Bill.
Yes, thank you. I think the final report, or not the final report, the consultation with West Berkshire is going to happen in September. So I think until then, we can't really go into any detail, but there's certainly an update on where we are will be available anyway through as we go through it. But this committee would be advised of what's happening at the next meeting.
Thank you. Yes, and I think this is going to become quite a significant event when it actually occurs, and there will be quite a lot of information that will be fed to councils right across the board with regards to this. I think so.
If I can just say, our exit policy has gone forward to West Berks this week for discussion. So once that's been agreed or needs further discussion, we'll know further where we are, be able to bring that to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any further recommendations? Chris again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this licensing and appeals committee is largely autonomous anyway. And in terms of formulating policy, I don't think it matters very much that we're coming out PPP. It's the operational aspects which are going to change. So we form our own policies at the moment, and we'll do the same. I'm happy to be corrected by officers. I think we are an autonomous committee, as are the other three in the PPP, and we can do as we choose. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, I believe that if we do, once we've gone through that process, this committee will actually have more information available to it in other areas, which we used to have in the past, a long time ago, and when it disappeared when PPP was there. So I look forward to seeing that moving forward. If there are no further questions on or comments on that, then I think that is. Have no other items. No, in that case, I officially close the meeting. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Chair.